Hey, it's Christopher with another episode of What's Brewing, and today we're talking about the 5 things that I consider when making New Year's resolutions. Let's roll that beautiful B-roll. Well, it's finally 2022, and I want to start off this year with a couple things that maybe you and I can consider as New Year's resolutions, or at least things that would influence your New Year's resolutions. I want to be upfront at the beginning of this video that there are many folks out there who specialize in helping to achieve some of the goals that all of us may set, whether it be financial, personal, or relational. If you're looking for a subject matter expert in any of these areas, I would look to your community, seek them out, and engage them on a professional level. Having said that, these are my anecdotal opinions about what I would consider, or what I do consider every single year when making some of my yearly goals. First up, I would say, is mental health. Over the last few years, I've realized that my emotional well-being and my mental state has a huge impact on my day-to-day. It has impact on really everything that I do. Really, the battleground is the mind when it comes to making our decisions and trying to navigate challenges, and of course, prevent yourself from being emotionally hijacked in high-stress situations. So over the last couple years, one of the things that I've done as a business owner is give my staff personal time off at least one additional Friday every month. Now, what I mean by that is I pay them their full salary for that day per hour to be off, to go and do whatever they want to do. We have some ground rules for that. Number one, we tell them get off of your email, get off of any kind of instant messaging, and go be present or go do something with your family or friends, or just for you, that helps you to decompress. Now, I'm a consultant by trade, and so I deal with either situations at scale where I'm helping customers to deploy 35,000 devices, or dealing with high pressure situations where my team is trying to support a customer who has a critical piece of technology that doesn't work, and we're trying to get it up as quickly as humanly possible. And so we find ourselves at this intersection of scale and stress, and those combined can put a toll on anybody. And I would say that's just from my industry perspective. I'm sure in your industry you have the same kind of challenges where the things that you do put a load. Now, any basic psychology will tell you that it's sometimes the scale of severity that affects your mental well-being, as well as smaller impacts over a longer period of time. No matter how you are dealing with your stress, you need a place to have an outlet. And so what we've done is, we don't necessarily call them mental health days, but we do provide that atmosphere with our staff to be able to take time off at any time if they're having a difficult moment mentally, to go home and recharge. Now, that's challenging to do, but as a business owner, I found that my morale personally by doing this and with my staff has increased exponentially. So I would say, if you're looking to set a goal, make sure you're making room for mental health days. Don't see downtime as an opportunity to fill it with more things. There are times when sometimes you have to do the discipline of solitude. It's okay to be alone. It's okay to have quiet time and to sort of alleviate all the noise and pressure that is put on you on a day-to-day basis. I would say number 2 is physical health. For me, I did not take this seriously for many years. In March of 2017, I found myself in an ICU unit for 4 nights in a state of ketoacidosis. I was diagnosed as an insulin-dependent type 2 diabetic. When I was wheeled out in a wheelchair, I committed that I would immediately go to the nearest store, buy an Apple Watch, and start looking at ways that I can start to get physically healthy. Now, I want to be upfront. Physical health is not necessarily a body type. It's not necessarily a waist size. It's not a certain weight. It's really about an approach that you take to make sure that you're doing things that, for lack of better words, make sure that you feel good. I didn't realize how bad I felt until I started down a path where I chose to be more healthy every day. And any doctor might tell you that health looks like at least 20 minutes of activity every single day. And that's what my general practitioner recommended to me, as well as my ICU physician when I left or was able to leave the hospital. And that was sort of my baseline. Now, since then, I've increased my activity more and more over the last few years. I started off walking about a half mile, moved it up to a mile, and then, on average, every day I'm walking anywhere between 2 and 4 miles a day, somewhere in that category. Now, I walk typically in the mornings, and I personally will either use that time to listen to audiobooks, or I traditionally have my staff call at 7 in the morning, and that's normally when I am walking during the day. So whether it be you're walking in the evening or you're doing some other type of activity, maybe it's some kind of an app or a Peloton, or maybe you're going to a gym. Physical health, again, is not about some kind of momentary diet where you achieve a certain weight and then sort of let it all fall by the wayside. Health is an overall life choice, something that you have to live with every day, and that ultimately leads to you feeling and then measurably being in a better place. For me, I measure my blood sugar as well as my blood pressure. These are things that are some numeric ways that I can judge whether or not my feelings are lining up with the facts of the data and what would be considered healthy. Again, I want to be clear, it's not necessarily a waist size or a certain weight. It's really up to you to figure out what you need to do, and if you can engage a professional to do that with you, that's even better. I would say number 3 is relational health. I think it's easy to be one-sided when you're thinking about health. Obviously, your emotional and mental state are important. Physically, that's going to also impact your health, but also relationships. I find it easy to hold grudges and hard to forgive. One of the things that I've had to do every year is recognize that, and this is hard to say, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I've made decisions in my past that I've had to live with today that I think to myself, maybe I should have done things a little bit differently. One of the things that a concept that I think was brought to the forefront of my consciousness last year was this idea of emotional hijacking, allowing high pressure situations to cause you to react in a way that would be negative or caustic to other people. I've realized that doing that and not, being more emotionally aware and having emotional intelligence and dealing with people has hurt some folks along the way. And I'm recognizing that and trying to work on that really for the last 3 or 4 years. My diabetes evidently had a lot more impact on my emotions, because when my blood sugar would drop, I'd become a little bit more testy. I'd be a little quicker to react. And now I recognize that more. And so part of that relational wellness, I think, is learning to deal with conflict better and to forgive folks and to understand and set your expectation of what people can and can't do. But the other side of that, on the positive side, is also just being present. I've realized that my career has been sort of all-consuming for the last 10 years. I've put a lot of energy into it, and it's been at a cost. One that I've found is to be too expensive. I will always give 100% to my job during the hours of 9 to 5. After that, I'm not open to working late, because that means someone else is having to be sacrificed for me to go spend time doing work. And I've realized that I'm going to miss out on key moments with my godchildren, with my wife, with my family, and with my friends. There's a balance, of course, because as a small business owner, I know that the confines of work don't necessarily stay within a certain boundary all the time, but I've made the commitment to myself and to other people that going beyond those boundaries is now the exception. It's no longer the rule. And I found that I have much richer relationships, much more meaningful friendships, and I have just a plethora of just moments that I was able to be a part of because I put people as one of my priorities and not just something that I left over when I had a little bit of time to spend with them. So I think relational health is important. Again, it's going to be different for every person. Not everyone has that luxury, but I think making it one of your resolutions will help you to bring it more in balance so that you keep all these things, I think, in the right perspective and the right percentage of your time. I think number 4 is professional growth. Professional development has been a huge part of what I do year over year. As a consultant, an Apple consultant, and a certified trainer for multiple companies like Apple, Jamf, and Microsoft, I have to go through yearly certifications, and to be able to deliver new courses or new services, we have to go through some kind of a train the trainer or some kind of a verification or vetting process. Usually very technical. I would use the word intense, but early on it was more difficult coming from a non-technical background to sort of go through these various steps to be able to deliver services. But it adds a load and adds time, but it's made me better, stronger, and faster. Over the last few years, it's been exciting for me to just see where I've come from 10 years ago, where I some of the concepts that I teach now as a trainer, I didn't really even understand as a professional, to me is just amazing. I'm excited to see how far I've come. One of the things that I did last year was a project management certificate from Louisiana College, and I did that because as a project engineer, professionally helping guide customers through large-scale deployments, I wanted to understand the other side of it, specifically the project management, to embrace more systematic and prescriptive approaches, to understand concepts like operations, and of course delivering things at scale and being able to use tools or workflows like Sigma 6 to figure out where there are problems in the supply chain or the workflow or whatever the thing that I'm building for a customer. And having gone through that year over year, I think is so rewarding. When I look at it, each on their own were little chunks, but over the years it's really brought me along so far. And I kind of regret the previous 10 years that I wish I had spent more time developing myself and being able to do more and able to then coach more. But I'm thankful that for the last 10 years I've made that a high priority, and it's really helped create more opportunities. It's made me a better option as a consultant, and I think a better leader and a better business owner, because I've really been able to grow and expand what I'm able to do, and I'm able to help my team more significantly than I would have been able to even 5 years ago. I would say number 5 is personal growth. For me, personal growth is just as important as professional growth. Obviously, a lot of people are motivated to grow because there's some kind of financial reimbursement. Amazingly enough, I'm not actually motivated by money. It doesn't drive what I do. I'm a business owner, so I understand the mechanics of money and all of that, but it's just not something vocationally that I really put as a high priority. I'm aware of it. I want to be responsible and a good steward of it, but for me, growth is growth. And yeah, obviously it benefits you when you do professional growth, but I've always been motivated more by personal growth. I think for me, the big moment of personal growth came where I was just getting into my career, and I thought that if I had better equipment that I'd be a better consultant or a better professional. And I learned very quickly that buying your way into better skills is not really a thing. You can have the best hardware in the world and the most talent, but if you don't have discipline and focus and again, personal development, then those tools are not going to be as effective. You won't be able to get as much out of them if you don't make yourself better in the process. And that really shifted me to doing my professional development, but I actually spend a lot of time reading just personal books on leadership, on mental health, wellness, personal finance. These are all things that I've really taken seriously. And some of the things that I felt uncomfortable with, especially things like money, home life, those are things that were very intimidating for me and things that just felt very uncomfortable and stressed me out. And over the last couple years, obviously running a business, I deal with money, but really looking at my personal finance has been an area of personal growth where I've learned things about what to do with savings and investments and how to strategically pay off things and that approach. Those things are all very personal to me that have allowed me to personally grow and become more comfortable with things that, math I didn't like, but now I realize these are just numbers and they're not a big scary monster. They're just something to deal with. Now every person's different, right? Everyone's at a very different place. They have different life experiences. So your personal growth is going to look very different to my personal growth. Maybe you're a dynamic public speaker, but you are shy with the one-to-one conversations. Maybe you're great with the one-to-one conversations, but you're very intimidated by being in front of people. Growth is growth no matter who it is and where you're at. So I would encourage you to invest in things that help you grow personally. And obviously there's a little bit of a blur between professional and personal. They often do bleed into each other at a level, but I would keep them very, in your mind and in your heart separate, to saying this is for me, this is for work. This is something I'm doing that I'm going to benefit from, and I'm not really doing it. I'm not really motivated to do it because a job wants me to do it. And that's how I sort of differentiate professional and personal. But either way, you go, growth is growth. They're both good, but do some things that are just for you. That way it's about what you want and not what someone else needs. Let's give you a bonus tip. When I watched The Christmas Carol as a child, I was immediately inspired. Of course, there have been just a numerous amount that have been produced and put on screen over the years. But I remember distinctly the character of Ebenezer Scrooge. He's the centerpiece of that story, and all these ancillary characters set to inform who he is. the big thing that I think I took away from it was that when you see A Christmas Carol, it's really at its core a life audit. It's this check-in for Ebenezer to look at his childhood, his middle age, and really the current affairs of things that are going on, and really hits a lot of things. Everything I'm talking about, you really could pull out of A Christmas Carol. If you look at it at its core, he had a bad attitude, right? He didn't care about anyone else. His mental health wasn't good. He shut in, he shut the doors and sort of isolated himself. He really didn't try to professionally grow. He just was stagnant. He didn't try to become more generous, or it was just about the money that he would get, but never about giving away to the poor or the needy. And so he was very much in one focused and unbalanced. He didn't care about relationships. He obviously had his nephew who wanted to engage, but he was keeping at arm's length. And of course, losing, his love of his life because of his pursuit. And when you look at Ebenezer, he's a life that was unbalanced. And it's easy to aspire to great things. And the thing I think I love about Ebenezer is that at the end of that story, the first thing that he does is he realizes that it's not too late, he's just in time. And I would say that to you. At this point, you can look at your life and say, where am I at? I call it a life audit. It's something that I actually start on Thanksgiving Day. I write down all the things that I'm thankful for. And over the course of November, end of November and into December, I begin to write down everything that's happened. I categorize it by some of the things that I've talked about. Things like professional development, relational development, things like my finance, where I'm at financially, where my business is at. What are some of my life goals? What are some of the things that I want to do or see this year that I've never gotten to do? For me this year, we're taking a vacation for 7 days. We've never done that as a couple. My wife and I have never gone 7 full days. We take about 3 days our anniversary weekend, and that's about the maximum that we ever get to travel for personal. And this year we've never taken a road trip that's been 7 days, and we're gonna go from San Francisco to Seattle in July. We've never done it. We're an excited thing. It's one of those things that I just want to do that has no monetary benefit for me, that is an experience, I say of a lifetime. It's a meaningful experience, and we want to do it because we can and we should. And I think it's important when you're auditing your life that you look at Scrooge as your example. You don't want to be out of balance. You don't want to be over-focused on one thing or the other. You want to be able to measure it by multiple things. Now, what I've offered today is really my take on that and what I think and I consider. I'd actually be interested to know what you consider. Put those in the comments below. We'd love to know what you're looking at and what you're thinking about when you're making your life decisions and your life goals, and of course your New Year's resolutions. Either way, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it brings a little bit of insight. Probably not new for many of you, but just a perspective that I have and that I keep, and that this life audit is what keeps me accountable, so that at the end of the year, as I set these goals at the beginning of the year, that I try to at least accomplish some of them, if not all of them. It's hard. We're all in process, but I make more of an effort as the years go on. Well, if you like this kind of content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell to stay up to date with everything that we're producing. We really appreciate your support of the channel. As always, we hope that you're doing well, we hope that you're staying safe, and we'll see you in the next one.